Welcome, everyone, to the NoDQ.com live recap of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. We have the AEW Grand Slam. I'm not sure what it is, but it's an event coming up in February. I believe it's February 15th. We also have AEW Revolution coming up in March. Let's get to this week's Dynamite. Shout out to everybody watching, whether it's live or on demand. I appreciate your viewership and support. We had Tony Schiavone in the ring talking to Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. Omega came to the ring with his old music. I'm not sure what that's about, but Omega out with his music that he had prior to his diverticulitis battle. Ospreay talked about how a lot changed in AEW when Omega was gone. Ospreay talked about how he has nothing to do with the Don Callis family anymore. He's been trying to make a positive change, and he said that he is trying to get to Jon Moxley and the AEW World title, but he cannot get through the Don Callis family alone. Now, Kenny Omega brought up their match from Forbidden Door a few years back and brought up how Ospreay stabbed him with a screwdriver, just like Don Callis did. Omega said that Ospreay is no better than Don Callis, and now that he's back, Ospreay is number 2 again. And he will never trust somebody like Will Ospreay. At this point, we had Don Callis arrive, and Omega went right after Callis, but then Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher attacked Omega. Then Ospreay went to help out Omega. All 4 men brawled around the ringside area. Then they started fighting in the crowd. Lance Archer and Brian Cage got involved. They fought in the concession area. Omega and Ospreay ended up suplexing Archer through a table, and then they got back in the arena, and you had Omega jumping off a scaffold, and then you had Ospreay jumping off one of the balconies. It was a wild, chaotic start to the show. Then Omega and Ospreay climbed up the scaffold, and Omega cut a promo while on top of the scaffold, and they basically challenged Don Callis family, specifically Takeshita and Fletcher, to a tag team match at AEW's Grand Slam, not pay-per-view event. Is it a Max special? Is it going to be on TNT at 2:30 in the morning? I don't know, but we do have this tag match set up. Other than the camera shots, and Matthew brought up how they missed the big jumps, besides that, I thought this was a great segment. I thought this was one of the better opening segments for Dynamite in a long time. It had that feeling of chaos. It had the vibe of like an early AEW Dynamite segment, and I really do think that AEW needs more of these types of segments throughout the show, not just in the opening segment or the closing segment. You really want people to think when they're watching Dynamite that something crazy could happen at any time. That's the feeling we need for this show. I definitely want to see more of these types of segments moving forward. Great opening to the show. We had a video package hyping up the main event. Adam Copeland versus Pac. Jon Moxley was backstage hyping up the match, and he said that when Cope returned from injury, Cope returned to a world that he does not belong in. We had our first match of the evening, which was for the AEW Tag Team titles. Hurt Syndicate versus Private Party, the champions. MVP was on commentary. Private Party, they've been the champs, but they have felt like an afterthought. And in this match, they were basically enhancement talent. It was largely Hurt Syndicate dominating. They were suplexing Private Party on the floor, and then Lashley gave Zay the Dominator, or that slam he does through the table, and then Quinn was all by himself for a while. Eventually, Zay was able to get back into it, and then all four men ended up in the ring, and Private Party got destroyed. Just wiped out with German suplexes from Benjamin, Lashley with the spears, and then Lashley pinned Zay to become the tag team champion with Shelton Benjamin. Interestingly enough, Lashley's first tag team title reign in his entire wrestling career. I feel bad that Private Party got squashed, but at the same time, their run was a bust. They beat the Young Bucks, but they were treated like a lower card tag team that just happened to be the tag team champions. This is good and bad. The good is you have the tag team titles on a credible team, a team that looks like they're the best team in AEW. The bad news is they're former WWE guys that are pushing 50. What AEW needs is a tag team that has this dominance of the Hurt Syndicate, but they're homegrown talent and 20 years younger. If they can do that, then AEW might be on to something. But for now, we'll have to settle with this. I'm happy for Shelton Benjamin. He put in all those years, was booked at a lower position than he should have been, and now he's finally getting that big push. They got something for Lashley right now. Interestingly enough, AEW completely moved away from that Swerve feud. You know, there's the internet speculation that maybe Lashley didn't want to put over Swerve in a rematch, so they just killed the feud. You felt like there should have been more to that, but now Swerve has moved on to a match or a feud with Ricochet, including a match, and Lashley's now a tag team champion. And Matthew, the only thing about the Outrunners is I really do feel like they're just a flavor of the month. Like, I don't think the Outrunners will be a thing in 6 months. I really don't. It's like a novelty gimmick right now. And yeah, you could have put the tag team titles on them, but I don't necessarily think that they're anything more than just a novelty gimmick for the time being. Ultimately, AEW needs to work on their tag division and start building it up and creating some new teams. That's what they really need. We had a Mariah May versus Toni Storm video package, and then Toni Storm was interviewed backstage. She talked about how she's nervous yet excited for her first ever encounter with Mariah May. Of course, she's still got the amnesia. And then we had Harley Cameron come in, and Toni said that maybe there's a way Harley Cameron can get on that Grand Slam card in Australia. More on that in just a little bit. Karen Jarrett met with Jeff Jarrett, and she said that getting in the mud with MJF is not who he is anymore, but Jeff said he's got it all under control and she needs to relax. He then went to the ring for a promo in Knoxville, Tennessee. By the way, people were making jokes about the venue. I thought it was a suitable venue for AEW at this point. It looked full. Wasn't a very big crowd, but better than booking those 15,000 seat arenas that they cannot even come close to selling out. These are the types of buildings AEW should be running in. And I thought it looked good on TV for the most part. You know, a couple of those hard cam shots where there's that big wall, it kind of looks low rent. But beyond that, the wider shots, I thought it was a nice venue. WCW used to do shows in this venue, just for the record, on Nitro. So I'm fine with them running this building. I had no problem with it. Anyways, back to the Jeff Jarrett promo in Tennessee. his neck of the woods. And he brought up Jerry Lawler, how Lawler tried to tell him to not get in the gutter with his opponents. And then he said that he's not going to be talking about the one-hit wonder MJF. Instead, he wants to talk about Jon Moxley and the AEW championship. But then Claudio showed up, took a cheap shot, laid out Jeff Jarrett, and then left the ring. But then Jarrett got back up, got on the mic, and issued a challenge. He wants to fight Claudio next week on Dynamite. And he said that if he beats Claudio, he wants a title match with Jon Moxley. And Claudio accepted the match. So that will take place next week. I feel like they're going to hopefully get this Jeff Jarrett storyline over with. I mean, why is Jeff Jarrett being pushed like this in 2025? Remember, the wrestling shows Dynamite, Collision, well, in theory, they should be valuable real estate. This is national TV. Why are you giving your precious national TV time to Jeff Jarrett in 2025? He's not John Cena. They're trying to build up this retirement storyline like he's John Cena or even Sting. I don't get it, but I'm hoping that they'll rush through this. Maybe they do the match at Grand Slam, since Grand Slam isn't being positioned as a pay-per-view. They could throw that Jeff Jarrett, Jon Moxley match on there. People can watch it at 3 a.m. or whenever it's going to be in the United States. And we move on to Revolution. And unfortunately, we're probably getting Moxley versus Cope at that event. I'm ready for Moxley versus Omega or Ospreay and get that title off of Moxley ASAP. But we're going to have to wait a bit longer, folks. It's just the way it is. All right, next segment we had was Swerve versus AR Fox. Remember, these guys were rivals, allies, whatever. I mean, AR Fox has been booked like a complete enhancement guy for the past year or so. So I can't imagine too many people caring much about these guys fighting at this point. Fox didn't get a little bit of offense, but then Swerve was on the verge of winning. And then we had Ricochet show up with a pair of scissors, but then Prince Nana had the lead pipe to get Ricochet to back off, and Nana chased him to the back with the pipe. AR Fox almost won, but then Swerve was able to avoid the 450 splash, and then he hit the house call, followed by the Swerve stomp, and got the 1-2-3 victory. And then after the match, Ricochet appeared on the big screen. Ricochet said he's got a lot to say. He had the pair of scissors held up against Prince Nana's neck, threatening like he was going to stab Nana in the neck. But then he just had a message. He said that he is the new landlord, and even though it's Swerve's house, the rent is due. Segment was what it was. I'm going back and forth between thinking Ricochet has been great here, but at the same time, it still comes off as goofy, as this comment mentions in the chat room. I liked when he did that violent attack, but now he's kind of acting goofy again. I don't know. It's a bit silly with the scissors and everything, but yeah, I feel like Ricochet is eventually going to be fed to Swerve, and we'll move on to something else. We had, well, this is something I didn't want to move on to, but we had Chris Jericho, New York Minute, and they were cutting a promo on Powerhouse Hobbs, and Big Bill challenged Hobbs to a match on Collision. Whatever. Hobbs can beat him. I mean, Hobbs can just run through this entire group and send them all packing, as far as I'm concerned. Get Hobbs back in the title picture or something. Build him up. Keep building up Hobbs. He's one of the few rays of hope that you have in this company. Thankfully, the Jericho segment was short. I will say that. Next up, we had what was set to be Adam Page versus a random wrestler, but MJF came to the ring and cut a promo on Jeff Jarrett. So we got more stuff about Jeff Jarrett. whenever Jeff Jarrett's not on the screen, we're all saying, where's Jarrett? Well, MJF is talking about Jeff Jarrett, and he said that he wanted to manipulate Jeff Jarrett into a title match because Jeff Jarrett would be the easiest person to beat. And he called Jarrett senile, said wrestling doesn't love Jarrett anymore. And the crowd was chanting Double J. I feel like they were doing that out of sympathy, but they were chanting it. And then Adam Page came down for his match, had a couple of words with MJF, and then MJF left, and that was that. Anyways, don't care about the Jeff Jarrett stuff. Hate to say it, really don't care about the MJF stuff, to be totally honest at this point. Adam Page beat the crap out of the prelim guy, and then gave him the Angel's Wings, which was Christopher Daniels' move after the match. Now, Saturday on Collision, I actually did see the match. Adam Page beat Christopher Daniels in a Texas death match. Daniels was bleeding all over the place, and the word is that Daniels is retiring. Now, after the match was over, Daniels showed up with a neck brace, said he regretted having the match. Doctors have told him to never wrestle again, said that Page won. He hopes Page is happy now, and then he walked out. And Page was visibly upset about this. I don't know what this is leading to. If Page is going face or is Daniels actually going to wrestle again, I don't know what the deal is here. Maybe Curry Man's coming back for all we know. I'm a little bit confused what direction they're going in with all this. But again, don't really care all that much. Shout out to Sun Goshuaku, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Sun. I appreciate it. Sun says, do you like MJF better as a heel or a face? I liked MJF as a heel in the beginning, but eventually he got himself over with the fans, and it got to the point where people did not want to boo the guy, and he became a great babyface. I know some people were not a fan of it, but I think he had a hell of a run in 2023. He won the NoDQ.com year-end award for Superstar of the Year. He was hot in 2023. There was no good reason to turn him back. You don't want to turn the guy heel when the fans are behind him and he has that organic momentum. WWE made that mistake with Steve Austin. WCW made that mistake with Ric Flair. Even though Ric Flair was a great heel, fans in 1999 didn't want to see Flair as a heel. And fans didn't want to see Steve Austin as a heel in 2001. Just because the guy can do the role well, sometimes you got to go with the organic reactions and what the fans want. I think turning MJF back heel has turned out to be a huge mistake. I mean, MJF basically regressed and went back to the old gimmick, and it just doesn't pack that punch that it used to. I think the heel turn for MJF has been kind of a bust, to be totally honest. I hate to say it because I'm a big MJF fan, and I feel like he's very much being wasted right now. And yeah, another example of turning Rikishi. I mean, there were a lot of them. Goldberg in 2000, Sting in 1999. I could think of a lot of turns that did not work out well. Sting was never a good heel, though. That's the thing. Rikishi was, I mean, Rikishi definitely did not need to go heel. And then, yeah, the Goldberg heel turn was a complete disaster. But, yeah, WCW was pretty much a lost cause at that point. 9:20, we had our women's portion of the show, although Toni Storm did cut a promo a little bit earlier on. DDP in 99, that's another good one, Jeremy. We had Mercedes Moné with her 4 championships backstage, and then Harley Cameron came in on her guitar, so that's her gimmick now, and she can sing. She's got her guitar, she's singing, she's basically doing Elias, but singing. She's cutting her promo in the form of song, and she challenged Mercedes to Grand Slam Australia, And Mercedes, of course, turned it down. I didn't hate the segment. I know some people didn't like it. I think Harley's got potential. And it's not just her showing off what she's got. I think that this is an interesting gimmick with her, and it's something different. You know, they went outside the box with Toni Storm, and it worked. So I give them credit here with Harley for trying something new here. And she's easy on the eyes, and she's entertaining. They might be on to something with this. I'm not hating it. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem if she even beat Mercedes, which I don't think is going to happen. But I think there's something here with her. I say keep going with it. And maybe she can become a new star in AEW. Time will tell. I thought the segment was pretty entertaining. We had our women's match of the evening, Jamie Hayter versus Julia Hart. Competitive match between these two, a rematch from a few weeks ago. They were fighting on the outside, and then they went back and forth in the ring. Jamie got the upper hand with an avalanche back suplex, and then Julia took control with a crucifix bomb, but then Jamie was able to kick out, and then Jamie hit the Hayter Raid Lariat and got the 1-2-3 victory to make it 1-1 in their potential 3-match series. After the match was over, Jamie cut a promo. She put over Julia Hart, said Julia is a tough bitch, and then said that whenever Julia wants the third match, they can go and they'll have their match. It was good. I mean, they're at least trying to make something out of the women's division here with them. We'll see if they do the third match or not. And then we had a Will Hobbs promo. He accepted a match with Big Bill for Collision. I guess they're going to fight in the parking lot. And there's comments in the chat room. What happened to Saraya? Saraya took a break from AEW, and a report came out that she split up with her husband. That I forgot his name, but he's a musician, not a particularly good one in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, she split up. So her personal life, she's got stuff going on. Don't know what's up with her, when she'll be back. But yeah, Will Hobbs versus Big Bill. I guess they're going to do a parking lot brawl. And then we had Swerve Strickland cutting a promo. And he's got the match with Ricochet in 2 weeks. But then he said that maybe they won't wait. He wants a piece of Ricochet before that. I guess we'll see something with them next week or on Collision. Who knows? Then we had a video package from the, I guess, former House of Black. They talked about how this is minus Malachi. It's just Buddy Matthews and Brody King and Julia Hart. And they said that the voices that guided them before have gone silent. And now there's no leader, just violence. Pretty much confirming that Malachi Black is gone. And I think it's a safe bet. If you had to put money on it, I bet you 6 months to a year from now, Aleister Black will be back in WWE. Just a matter of time. I mean, I don't know the exact date that his contract is up. I mean, it might actually be pretty soon. But yeah, sometime in 2025, I think we'll see Aleister Black return. And maybe Ricky Starks. There's talk about his contract being up pretty soon. Miro is another one. Like, he's done nothing. Anybody who's been put on ice, I think it's a safe bet they'll end up in WWE at some point. I mean, you know Malachi for sure, because he was a Triple H guy for sure. And I think that Ricky Starks will almost certainly be there. He's tight with Cody Rhodes. I think Cody will get him in. And I think Triple H is probably a fan of Ricky Starks anyways. I don't know about Keith Lee, though, because apparently Keith Lee's been dealing with some health stuff. So that might actually be a factor in why he's gone. Although him too, I think if Triple H could get Keith Lee back, he will as well. And of course, Ray Phoenix. I feel like pretty much every name I mentioned will end up back in WWE. Moving on here, we had our main event of the evening, Adam Copeland versus Pac, formerly Adrian Neville. So we got Edge versus Neville. Neville got in a lot more offense than you might expect, although Cope is getting up there age-wise, so maybe it should be a competitive match here. They had the feeling out process, and then Pac got the upper hand, targeting the neck of Cope, and he was largely dominating, but then Cope made a comeback, but then Pac avoided the spear, put on the brutalizer. Cope was able to get out of it, and then he hit a spear to the lower back region. Then he hit another spear and got the 1-2-3 victory. I agree with Michael Wayne. It was a fun match, but predictable. I mean, there was no chance Cope was losing to Adrian Neville here. And then after the match was over, the Death Riders were on the big screen, and they beat up the Rock and Roll Express, concerto to James Gibson and Ricky Morton, while FTR were tied up in chairs. Then the Death Riders went to the ring, and they beat up Copeland. Jay White ran down to make the save, but the numbers were against him. Wheeler Yuta came in with a low blow. You had Marina Shafir getting involved, and the Death Riders left both men laid out. Moxley took out Cope with the Bulldog choke and left the ring. I don't know why Jeff Jarrett didn't come out. Maybe he's got a little bit of MJF in him and he knows better. I don't know. And he really is just looking out for himself. Anyways, the ending was what it was. I've established this before. I have no interest in Moxley versus Copeland. Really, I feel like the Copeland run has run its course. Like, he came back, he showed up in AEW and had a couple of good months there, but then he got hurt. And ever since he's been back, I've just been indifferent to it. Like, I really feel like, if anything, him and Christian should do their final run and then wrap it up for both of them. Just my opinion. One of the big issues, I think, with this show overall was that it really felt like the guys that were getting the most focus are the older veterans. Instead of pushing your younger talent, the focal point of the show, guys like Jon Moxley, guys like Adam Copeland, Hurt Business, Chris Jericho, Jeff Jarrett. Really all these guys should be putting over the new stars and being phased out for the next generation. So that's kind of the problem right now. They were even though I'm not the biggest fan of him, they were putting Daniel Garcia in a big spot, but I feel like he's barely around. He does Collision, but he's the TNT champion and he feels like an afterthought. Same thing with Private Party. Like, you got to start building up your younger guys and building your next generation up. So yeah, I thought this was a mixed bag of a Dynamite. Like, that opening segment was hot. That was an A segment, but the rest of the show, it kind of fell off from there. I did like the Hurt Business winning, but I do see the issue with that as well. It was mixed for me. So because of that, I would start at like a 5, and then I'm going to go up because of the opening segment to a 6. So all in all, I give it a 6 out of 10. Good Dynamite. Not great. I still have some issues. And I'm still wondering what the hell they're doing with some of these storylines. I have some confusion, but there is some bright spots. Omega and Ospreay can still come in and do something with Moxley, and Harley Cameron might be on to something. We'll see if they can build these people up, and maybe Hobbs can get back in the mix for a world title potentially. We'll see what they do. Anyways, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it. City by the Bay, I do not have AXS TV, so unfortunately, I will not be recapping TNA, but best of luck to them. Hopefully, they get on a better channel soon. Have a great night, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and spread the word. Tell a friend. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the latest, and I will see you all next time.